of the stages of samadhi or samapatti as it is called in the yoga system of Patanjali. In laying the foundation of the very meaning of samadhi, I think I have taken enough time to explain to you the intricacies, the subtleties and the profundities of this process. It is not a sudden jump to reality that is taking place in one's attempt to attain union with reality. Degrees of reality are accepted evidently in all schools of thought, west or east. There is a necessity to accept there being such a thing called an evolutionary process, and each stage of process is as real as any other. There may be a lower one and there may be a higher one. It does not mean that only the higher stage is real and the lower is not. It is often said that the advance of human aspiration is not from untruth to truth, but from lesser truth to higher truth. Total negation of truth is not possible. The categories of the Sankhya enumerated already are the principal themes of concentration in the system of Patanjali. To repeat for your memory, the stages according to the Sankhya, accepted by the Vedanta also, are first of all an infinite consciousness, called by various names, Brahman, Purusha, Absolute, Substance and all that. Then is posited a potential for objective manifestation, which in the language of the Sankhya is known as Prakriti, the universal matrix of pure objectivity about whose nature I try to introduce you perhaps in one of the earlier two sessions. It may be difficult for us to conceive what this Prakriti is, because every name which is a noun and a substantive is generally taken to mean some existent something. Actually, intriguingly though, Prakriti is not a substantial existent something, but a potentiality for objectification of what is otherwise universal. It is a mysterious force which cannot be defined in any language. There must be something operating, though we cannot know what it is, in order that the all-pervading or universal being gets objectivized and made to appear as an external universe. That peculiar operation is known as Prakriti. It is not a substance but a mode of operation. Suppose one is ill. Illness cannot be regarded as a substance. It is not a solid object. Yet illness exists. Generally, by existing, we mean there is a perceptible something. But a thing called disease or illness or fever cannot be perceived by any organ or any sensory means. It is, and yet it cannot be known, except by experience that something is abnormally functioning in oneself. This abnormality, which cannot be regarded as an object or a subject or a substance or anything whatsoever, yet operating like a fever in the body of a person, neither is nor it is not. It is called anirvajaniya, indescribable. Fever exists and yet you cannot catch it. You cannot see it, you cannot touch it, and there is no substantiality in it, though it annoys you very much. Such a kind of potential for externalization of the universal is called Prakriti. So the first is infinite consciousness, by whatever name you call it. Then this potential for externalization called Prakriti. Then a very mysterious, unthinkable reflection, as it were, of this universal through the potential known as Prakriti, taking the name of cosmic consciousness. They call it Mahatattva in the language of the Sankhya. That is to say, in order that one may be omniscient, omnipotent or omnipresent, there must be a sort of potential externality like space. Unless there is something to know other than one's own self, there is no question of omniscience. Unless there is something other than oneself over which one has to exercise power, omnipotence has no meaning. And unless there is a spatial concept, omnipresence also cannot be explained. The ultimate being cannot be called omnipresence, omniscience, omnipotence. It is beyond these grand concepts of religion, because there is no space and time there. Yet, we conceive the ultimate reality as all-pervading, all-knowing and all-powerful. This possibility has arisen on account of a peculiar conditioning of the infinite being through this externalizing medium called Prakriti, breeding a condition, a situation called Mahat or cosmic being, which becomes self-conscious and is known as Ahankara. Very carefully you have to distinguish between this so-called metaphysical I-ness known as Ahankara and your or mine feeling that I am. I mentioned to you the usage of the same word for two different things is unfortunate in this system. They could have used two different words. However, a cosmic sense of I is called Ahankara. This particular thing becomes a tripartite existence. On the one hand, the subjective percipient, on the other hand, the objective universe, and a third thing, an intermediary connecting link called the divinity. I call these names Adhyatma, Adhibhuta and Adideva. Now we shall not go into these details because our subject is Samadhi or Samapatti. when one attempts to concentrate on the basic lowest manifestation of reality, one confronts the physical universe. The direct attack by consciousness on this concept of physicality of the universe takes one by consternation, and you shudder at that time. Many a time in deep meditation people shake, feel a shock, and the whole body appears to be lifted up. This phenomenon takes place on account of the earlier incompatibility between individual being and cosmic being. When the individual so-called existence attempts to unite itself with the cosmic being, he feels a shudder suddenly, because the gradual melting away of the individuality of oneself is to the ego principle which maintains this individuality a very, very unpleasant experience. No one likes to get subjected to the diminution of one's self-respected individuality. But your meditation is nothing but a process of diminishing the quantum and even the quality of this individual ego principle, and so there is a blow given to it, as it were, by the entry of cosmic being into the so-called subjectivity which we are endearing, hugging so much as our own true self, but which it is not. The unpleasantness, the shock, the pain in the body, the difficulty in sitting for long in meditation are all excuses in the form of a malingering, as they call it, adopted by the ego. I am not for it. They say when a war takes place, the soldiers fall sick. That is called malingering. Somehow or other, some reason is brought forth not to engage oneself in this arduous task, which is certainly not pleasant. To lose one's individuality is not pleasant. It is a dear thing. You have been hugging it throughout ages. Now you are trying to give a blow to it. You are bombarding the atom, as it were, and trying to release a tremendous energy out of it. And nobody likes to be bombarded. So, in the very first instance of your attempt to introduce the cosmic element into the so-called perceiving individuality of yours, you feel something strange that is taking place. You do not know whether you are alive or dead, and whether you are on earth or in heaven. All sorts of unpleasant experiences arise. I mentioned to you yesterday, these are the so-called obstacles in meditation. The obstacles do not come from gods and demons, as tradition says. The gods and the demons are within ourselves only. The potentials in our own personality, in all the layers of psychic existence, manifest themselves outwardly, presenting pleasant conditions of temptation and unpleasant conditions of threat and disaster. Sometimes we feel that things in the world are very beautiful, happy, and we shall have them. These tendencies present in us manifest themselves outwardly in space and time as beautiful things, tempting objects, celestial phenomena, etc. in meditation, which yoga technique tells us is the main obstacle, temptations. They are only the outer manifestations of your own inner liking for certain things in the world. There are certain things you don't like. They also manifest themselves outwardly as threats and disastrous consequences. Beware, I shall put you down, says. In this connection, may I remind you of the wonderful experiences Buddha had when he was trying to attain this great samadhi. In the beginning he was tempted. Beautiful things, celestial taste, wonderful fragrance, softness. Who would not like to have them? Beautiful music and dance, all celestial presentations, they were in his presence. Not only that, he saw in his own presence his wife sitting, whom he had abandoned earlier. He was surprised, how this lady is here in front of me. I am so far away from the palace. The conditions which relate a husband to the wife manifest themselves as this phenomenon. The lady herself has not come, she is in the palace. But there is a circumstance or a potential relationship of husband to wife which manifests itself externally as her presence. If the wife meditates, husband will come. If the husband meditates, wife will come, or whatever it is, even the child will be there. But he withstood this temptation. He said, Maya, get down, get up, get down, don't away. Get thee behind Satan, said Christ. He was strong enough to visualize as to what this is. Get out from this place, he said. But the other potentials also were there, which one hated, and those hateful instincts manifested themselves as threat and loud roarings and cursings and noises and demoniacal faces saying, I shall finish you just now if you don't get up from this place. But he had a great courage. He said, if you want to finish me, I shall not get up, he said. So the beautiful temptation and the threat of unpleasant things, both will present themselves to each person. If Buddha had it, everyone else also will have it. You have heard in the Puranas the story of nectar being churned out of the ocean called Amrita Manthana. Gods and the demons churned the ocean, it appears, for getting nectar out of it. But when they churned and churned and churned, which is comparable to the process of meditation that we are practicing, nectar did not come at all. Though the union with the Absolute is what you are aspiring for, it never comes. The opposite of it comes. Nectar did not come, poison came. In the Puranas it is said 14 tempting things came. I am not going to recount all these things now, that is not relevant for us. But first was a tremendous poisonous gas, suffocating and killing as it were. That came up. These are the manifestations of the evil tendencies which everyone has potentially. No one can be said to be 100% good and wonderful in this world. The evil tendencies also are there. They can be brought out by rubbing and scratching the person in the wrong way. They also come up and manifest themselves as poison. In a similar manner is the experience that one has to pass through. What one has experienced, every other person also experiences. Because all are same as far as the individual constitution is concerned. There is no higher and low among all are equal. So all persons will have the same experiences. When you attempt at facing the whole physical universe as your object of meditation and attempt to unite yourself with it, a samadhi ensues. A kind of lower samadhi ensues. In Patanjali's language, this is known as Savitarka Samadhi. Sanskrit word, if you want to remember it, otherwise forget it. Which means to say, a samapati or a union that is accompanied by great personal effort. It is not a spontaneous coming up, like apple falling from the tree. You have to struggle very hard, intellectually and feelingfully. The intellectual and feelingful operation taking place at the time of this attempt, to come in contact and union with the whole physical universe, tremendous experience indeed. The whole thing will shake, the whole earth will shake. That is the lowest samadhi. You call it lowest, while this itself looks so wonderful and grand. The most wonderful, intriguing and difficult to understand thing, that is regarded as the lowest of unions. I am taking you stage by stage to the levels of samapati or samadhi described by Patanjali in his sutras. I am giving you more details than what appears in the sutras, because his sutra is very short and like a capsule. You may find anything inside it. But capsule is potential and it is filled with some kind of ingredients which cannot be manifested outside. You don't know what it contains. I am trying to explain to you what this capsule contains. So first and foremost is the experience of a most pleasant and yet difficult encounter with the cosmic physical existence, wherein you seem to be entering into the sea of the physical universe and yet feel at the same time the waves of the sea dash upon you and push you back to the shore. When you try to enter the sea for taking a bath, you will see this kind of thing happening. On the one hand, you have the feeling that you are entering into the sea. On the other hand, you have a rebuff from the waves of the sea which will try to cast you out into the shore. This kind of struggle is the characteristic of this lowest samadhi, Savitarka Samapati or Samadhi. You are entering into the ocean of the whole physical universe and at the same time receiving a kick from this cosmos, because you have never been friendly with it any time in your life. So it shows its teeth. You fellow, you never wanted me. At any time you ignored me completely. Now you want me. See what I can do for you. Come on, but see my tiger-like face. It will say. You are frightened. Oh, tiger-like face. I don't want. You will like to drop your samadhi and get away and run away from this place. Nature can be called a tigress, if you want to call her. Very wonderful, very impartial, perfectly just, and yet looking like a fierce ogre if you actually appear to go near it. Here, the samadhi or the samapati that is accompanied by internal psychic struggle in overcoming the limitations of oneself and allowing the universal being to enter into oneself, this is Savitarka Samadhi. Please note down what I have told you, because I cannot go on repeating this again and again. Then comes another stage. That is to say, something very mysterious again for you. Though you are trying to unite your being with the whole cosmic existence in the nature of the universe, you cannot forget that this universe is in space and in time. Can you imagine a universe minus space and time? No effort can permit you to disregard the interference of space and time. The whole universe is in space. This is what you are thinking. You go high to any distance into the most distant stars, which are many millions of light years away. It does not matter. But all this physical universe is inside space. Newton, the great mathematician and physicist, thought that the whole universe is inside space, which was refuted later on by further discoveries in science. That the universe is not in space, it is something different, yet for all common sense purposes, it looks that it is in space. Now, when you contemplate the whole universe as if it is in space and time, it is loya samadhi savitarka. When you are struggling to obviate the interference of space and time and attack the universe as it is in itself, without any kind of association of space and time, that is nirvitarka samadhi, a higher state. You can imagine how difficult it is. However much you may try that you are existing minus space and time, you will not succeed in this attempt, because you are always in space and time. Space and time have entered into the very fiber and constitution of the process of thinking itself. As your great German philosopher Immanuel Kant will tell you, space and time are not objects to be seen outside, they are the very constitutional essence of the process of thinking itself. You cannot think minus space and time. Here is a problem. If the mind is infested with the very concept of space and time, how would the mind think anything independent of space and time? Kant will not give the answer to you. Only the system of Patanjali will try to give an answer. When you think something, you think it as existing naturally external to you, outside you, which means to say that it is in space. The externality of an object, something being outside you, is due to the fact of the interference or intervening of space between yourself and that which you are thinking. Suppose, as I mentioned to you earlier, the thing is yourself only. And I have told you how you have to think the world or the object as yourself by aligning yourself with this being, thinking through its eyes, being through its being, and experiencing as it would experience itself. If the so-called object which is appearing to be in space because of its outsideness from you can become you, the distance between you and the object is abolished and the space goes away. If you can adopt this technique in connection with the whole physical universe, the physical universe is not an object of contemplation, it is itself meditating. You are not meditating on the physical universe. Cosmic being, which is the physical universe itself, is meditating. Where are you then? You need not worry about all that. You have not to be there. Because your being there is an interference. You are a kind of alien matter, a kind of unnecessary interference, like an illness, as I mentioned to you. The universal physical universe does not want you to be there looking at you, looking at it. Why? Because you cannot exist minus that. The universe includes space, time and objects which include yourself also. You are also one of the objects of the universe. Things which are the constituents of the universe include yourself also. So who are you to go and looking at the universe? If you can attempt this process, abolish the distance between yourself and the objective universe which you are contemplating, and you can accommodate yourself to the feeling that the universal being, cosmic existence, universal reality, the whole universe, physical in its nature, itself is thinking that it is. Which process implies you are entering into it as an inextricable organic part. In the second stage of Samadhi, which is known as the Nirvitarka Samapatti or Samadhi, the whole universe is conscious of itself. It is not that you are conscious of the presence of a universe. That stage is bypassed. You have transcended that, should not think of it again. Merely because of the fact you cannot stand outside the universe, you do not come into the picture at all. You have to abolish yourself, not by an unnecessary effort of will on your part, but by a spontaneous acceptance that you cannot be outside the universe. Then a thrill enters into experience. A thrill. Nobody can explain what that thrill is. Any amount of explanation, any word in dictionary cannot explain what will happen to you. What is the universe thinking? That you will think. Can you ever imagine what the universe is thinking? With the farthest stretch of your imagination, you cannot tell me what the universe is thinking. It is thinking itself. It has nothing to think because nothing is there except itself. Thought, thinking itself is God, said Aristotle. Thought, thinking another is a human being. You are entering into the portals of divinity. Stages of the Absolute are manifesting themselves before you. So, the question of space and time does not arise here. So, the encountering of the whole physical universe, independent of there being such a thing called space, universe contemplating itself, in which case the question of space and time does not arise because space and time are within the universe. So why should it think of space and time? Such a wonderful experience. Even to hear this is a great joy. That comes to you as a great gift from the powers that be in this second stage of Samadhi known as Nirvitarka Samadhi. But this is not all. There is something more. However much you try to bail out the ocean with your bucket, it will still remain as it was. and you will never exhaust the content of the ocean. It was noticed by us that the physical universe as it appears is not its essential nature. There are finer essences which constitute the so-called vast panorama of the physical universe. These potential forces which appear to be solid objects in the form of this physical universe, they are the energy quantums spoken of in physics. And in Sanskrit, these energy potentials are called tanmatras, the thatness of a thing, the suchness of a thing, or the whichness of a thing. As Buddhist psychology sometimes calls these potentials. Suchness, whichness, thatness, you do not know what to call it. Bhuta, tatata, the thatness of the thing. Pure, ubiquitous energy with no undulations, with no ups and downs, all pervading in the sense of itself only being everywhere, minus space and time also. In the beginning, you are likely to feel that there is the movement of energy in space and time. Whole universe is energy, but energy is inside space. This idea will not leave you. Okay, let it be. Even if you think that this universal energy, which is the basic substance of the physicality of the universe, is in space, does not matter, attack it by your meditative consciousness. The universe of physical appearance has gone now. You are facing pure energy. Difficult to imagine. Nobody knows what actually energy is. You may say it is like electricity, but what is electricity made of? Energy. What is energy? Electricity. No definition is possible. It is just what it is. Now you are in a state of concentration where you have given up the idea, the erstwhile feeling that the physical universe is made up of mountains, sun, moon, stars, and the trees and the rivers, etc. They are not. These are all outer manifestations of pure energy. But the old habit persists and makes you feel that this all-pervading energy is inside space. This samadhi, this kind of union, is known as Savichara Samadhi. These are all peculiar Sanskrit words. You may take this as just things that, names indicating these conditions that I am explaining, and you may use any other word for it in your own language if you like. Savichara Samadhi, a higher experience of complete communion with the very essence of the physical universe. But you are pursued by this concept of space and time. Can you feel that the energy is yourself only and therefore there is no necessity for space there? The same technique that you adopted earlier should be adopted here in the case of the energy also. You are not facing the universal energy, you are yourself the energy, because the whole bodily structure is made up of pure energy. Therefore, this energy which is you is not meditating on the energy that is all pervading. This energy that is so called you has gone, melted into the energy that is really there. Energy as it is in itself, which does not require to be called spatial or temporal. Minus the association of space and time, if you can identify yourself with universal energy, abandoning the feeling that you are existing separately, you are in a samadhi called Nirvichara Samadhi. Patanjali seems to be wanting to extract the last pound of flesh from you, and he will not allow you to be in peace. He again extracts the last drop of blood from you when he says this also is not sufficient. You are wondering what kind of Patanjali this is. However much I struggle and attain, he says this is not sufficient, this is not sufficient, this is not sufficient. Like the desires of a human being, he is never getting satisfied. I do not want to proceed further. Otherwise, you will have indigestion and you will not be able to take lunch today. You have already attained a wondrous state. Can you maintain this feeling always? When you are moving, when you are talking, when you are going to the dining hall, when you take bath, when you are going to the bazaar, where is the bazaar, where is the railway station, you know what it is. It's all very interesting thing. Can you maintain this great, wondrous experience that you are hearing just now? You will be the most blessed person in the world. Hari Om Tat Sat.